Why are you going to college in the first place? Why are you going? You're all here, you're all seniors, you're going to graduate soon. So what is it that led you to go to college in the first place?
I'm smart.
What? Well, wait, first, what?
To get a job.
To get a job? What kind of job were you looking for?
Good job
A good job related to psychology
in the
or
medical field.
in the medical field? What were you saying then?
Oh, because I like school. I'm smart. It's fun.
But you could have gone, you could have done a lot of other things. You could have, even if you're smart, you could have gone out and gotten a job.
I know, but I like to learn.
Okay.
It's fun.
So what other reasons? So you get to learn, you can get a job. Are there any other reasons people had?
I didn't think I could have gotten a job that I would have actually liked if I didn't go to college.
So do you feel going to college would lead to more money in general, sort of like was said here?
I mean, yeah, that's definitely a plus.
More opportunity.
Like, what do you mean more opportunity? That's a good
I
point.
mean, if you have like secondary education, like on your resume, you know, employers are gonna look at you like, oh, he went to school, he was, you know, he was hardworking, and you know, he went on with, you know, like more education to learn something, then he can be better qualified for the job rather than somebody who just went to go work. And
No, that makes a lot of sense. So when you apply, so you can have this on your resume. Are there any other reasons anybody can think why they went to school? Yes.
My dad's a professor, so I thought if I get a degree when we argue, I'd build up my resume a little more.
Okay, and you would, that's right, you'd have your reputation would be built there. In thinking about being at school, one of the important things to consider is the idea of individual responsibility. There are a lot of issues that are going to come up, and you have to think about how you're going to handle these things as far as balancing out your life with school and your life outside of school. One of the big issues that comes up is that you have to be careful not to have too much of the wrong kind of work. Now, what I mean by this is a lot of people work during school. In fact, here's some data to show you that although it's a slight increase, there is an increase over, you can say, this period 1984 to 2000, when we have data showing that employment rates of college students has increased, both for all students and full-time students. So you need to think about whether it's best to have a job while you're in school or not. Keep in mind a couple issues when you think about this. How many hours would you work? Are you going to work full-time? Well, that's going to be really hard. You're going to work part-time, and even part-time, how many hours? Where is the job? You know, one argument is that if you get a job, you don't really want to be off campus. It's not great, especially if you have to drive to get to that job or even take public transportation, because it's just time spent. Although you could argue public transportation, you could be reading and doing some schoolwork. But if you're able to get a job on campus, let's say in the library, well, that's a little better because typically you're right there and you can get to it easily and you're still on campus. You also have to think about, do you really need the money? You know, deciding to get a job typically is because people need the money, oftentimes just to live their life. So you have to talk to your parents. You have to think for yourself, do you really need the money? If your parents are going to give you some support, maybe you don't have to work and you can put more of your time into your schoolwork. Another thing related to the idea of individual responsibility is the idea of, you know, work and play. So, you know, a lot of people say, well, they're in college, they just want to have fun. And we talk about the idea in peers and beers. But you have to remember, you know, we all want to have fun, but you're a student first. And you don't want to end like this in class the next day. You want to have your fun, but you still, again, have to remember you're a student first. Another issue with individual responsibility is that you have to remember that while you're in college, you are developing. And it's a great thing, and there's a lot of social development that goes on. And social development includes making friends. Social development includes issues of love, finding a partner, having a relationship. Social development includes finding oneself, finding people who you want to be with, and then seeing where you fit in. So there's a lot of individual growth when you're in college. And also, though, with social development, you have to remember there's got to be a balance. Again, doing all these things with others, but focusing on your schoolwork. Some other important issues that come up is that with individual responsibility, it may seem so trivial, but the idea, we like to talk about this idea of wake me up in the morning. And the idea of who's going to do that? Are you really going to have your mom call you to wake you up? Keeping in mind that when you're in high school, your parents probably, for many of you, helped get you up in the morning. Also, you're really going to have your mom do your laundry. Well, look, this is your life now. You're an adult. It's this idea, again, of taking individual responsibility. I mean, you can think about things in this way. There's an old structure where people kind of did things for you, where you were in school, you went to school, and you were home, and there were certain dependencies that were built into the structure you were in. But when you're at college, there's a new structure where you go to class, where you do things, where you are taking responsibility. We always say, of course, it is up to you. And what this typically means for most students is that you have to be quite disciplined. You have to have discipline in your life. Potentially, for some of you, something that maybe you didn't have as much of before you went to college. And included in this idea of discipline is the idea that you might have to do things you haven't done as much before, such as planning a schedule. And even things like thinking, when should you take classes? Well, these are tough because you got to think about, well, you're going to take classes, for example, on Tuesday and Thursday, all between 11 and 3, so you can sleep late, party late, and go home on weekends. Well, it's probably unlikely you're going to get all your classes at those times. So you have to be somewhat flexible, but you have to think what's going to work for you and how things are best going to allow you to have the balance that we're talking about. Also, with the idea of planning a schedule, you have to think about making everything fit. Some things you just maybe have to compromise in ways that you haven't done before. But the key thing is you want to make that experience at college a great time. And the other thing is, when we talk about this, we hope you're not thinking, well, let me work my schedule out just so I can get home on the weekends. Because the argument is, if you wanted to get home so much, why did you even decide to go to college? We know to get an education, but again, there's so much more that you can get from being in college. Another issue, and it's tied in with the idea of individual responsibility, is that you're going to meet a lot of teachers. And teacher, teach me, we say. And remember, the faculty, though, college faculty, the people who you're going to meet about and who we're going to talk about, is that they're guides to learning. They're there to guide you, to help you get through, to help you learn. But again, you must take individual responsibility. In classes, don't depend on the faculty to remind you of things. You need to know what the rules are of the class. For example, each of you will get a syllabus in each of your classes. The syllabus are the rules of the class, and you have to know them. You can't expect faculty to tell you every little thing. And the other thing, those teachers are guides, but it's the same issue. You have to plan things out. You have to manage your time accordingly. Remember, too, with the faculty, you're going to get a lot of diversity of faculty. The faculty are going to be very different, probably, than what you used to. No two professors are alike. And then the question is, how are you going to deal with this diversity? How are you going to make the situation such that you are working with the faculty, that there's no tension and you're working against one another? You want to work with the faculty so they can help guide you through this path of learning.